Welcome. Welcome to this video for YouTube on the sermons of Scientology. My name is Alejandra Dingler, and I'm going to give you today a sermon that is called The Human Mind. All right, so let's start. The human mind. Why should anyone want to know anything about the human mind? And for that matter, why should anyone believe that knowledge of the human mind is either unobtainable or undesirable? Why should men ostensibly seeking answers to the mind stray so far from it as to examine rats and entirely avoid looking at human beings? Can you imagine trying to understand the human mind by studying rats' minds or brains? And why should anyone pretending to treat the mind stray so far afield as electric shock? The answers are relatively simple. Anyone who knows the structure, function, and dynamics of the human mind is very difficult to control. Do you understand this? If people are actually trying to control you, they're going to actually try to hide away and keep secrets about the mind or how it works. But if you actually understand about your mind and other people's minds, actually you are very hard to control. You would know, you would recognize when someone is trying to control your mind, wouldn't you? So it's a good thing. It's a good thing to know about human mind. The only way a mind can be controlled is by enforcing upon it ignorance of itself. As far as study and treatment is concerned, a mind which has been made ignorant of itself would have to have restored to it awareness of its fundamentals before it could be considered to be recovered. And when one restores full awareness to a mind, one is no longer able to victimize it. And the profession or society would have to move out of slave orientation into action by freedom and consent, where it to be effective, of course. And this is very simple to prove. What happens, for example, when someone is under drugs or under alcohol or something like that? What happens with that? It actually minimizes the reflex and the awareness of the mind, right? So it's easier to control. Do you understand this? Just as you do not want people to control you, so you should want knowledge of ourselves and others. Just as you fight away from knowingness concerning self, so you will be controlled. A simple and conclusive science of mind is a vital necessity in any society which desires to become free and remain free. This actually once inspires me to stop a little bit here, because I have heard the biggest nonsense about Scientology on how maybe Scientologists are actually brainwashing you and trying to actually control your mind and convince you of stuff. That is exactly the opposite of what Scientology does. Actually, what Scientology wants is for you to understand how the mind works, how, for example, these substances like drugs, like psych drugs, like alcohol actually put your mind under the control of others. This is actually what Scientology wants you to know. And so you understand how your mind works so that you would totally know and understand when someone wants to control you. What happens now in these days with the COVID-19 and everything that is happening and all these theories and stuff, what happens when you get people or a society on fear? They're easier to control. That's what happens. And I don't want to talk about it or politics or anything. I don't even want to get there. But it is true. If you have someone all the time scared or under fear, then it would be easier to simply tell them what to do. So Scientology is exactly the opposite, I can tell you. I've been in Scientology for many years, and I can tell you it's exactly the opposite. And here, it is told by L.Ronald Hubbard himself, the founder of Scientology. So I'm going to continue reading. A simple and conclusive science of mind is a vital necessity in any society which desires to become free and remain free. The only elements in a society which would combat or contest or dispute an effort to attain such a science would be those interests which desired by ignorance to maintain their control of a slavery. Each and every impulse of freedom is an impulse toward sanity, toward health, toward happiness. Every impulse toward slavery is an impulse in the direction of misery, disease, and death. One can say alike of the arthritic and the neurotic that the basic cause of disturbance, physical or mental, germinated in efforts to reduce the freedom of the individual, the group, or mankind. Dianetics is an effort toward the attainment by man of a level of freedom. Dianetics, I'm going to stop here. Dianetics is one of the fields of Scientology. Dianetics is the one that specifically specializes on the mind, okay, and the study of the mind and what is in the mind and how to get rid of all those undesired moments and failures and fears and all this that actually can get a person to stop acting as they are or with the impulse that they used to have, you know, when they hadn't had anything of those in their lives before. You know, it is because of this fears and failures and losses, you know, love losses or losses by death or whatever, that this pain, emotional pain or even physical pain are just there trying to stop us, you know, is what makes us lose that zest for life and that impulse to live. Does it make sense? So Dianetics is the one, the field in Scientology that specializes on this area, on the mind. So Dianetics is an effort toward the attainment by man of a level of freedom where decency and happiness can prevail, and where knowledge of the mind itself would prevent the unscrupulous use of the mechanisms of slavery. Dianetics can be contested. It can be vilified. Its founder and practitioners can be publicly pilloried. But Dianetics cannot be ignored. It could neither be drowned in praise nor burned in some purge to its total eradication, for it is a wonderfully observable fact that the one impulse in man which cannot be erased is his impulse toward freedom, his impulse toward sanity, toward higher levels of attainment in all of his endeavors. Every man, it is my belief, it was L.Ronald Hubbard's belief, and I think it is your belief too, that every man actually wants to get better. And they want their families to get better, and they want their children to get better, and their society to be better. No one wants to live in a society that is degraded and full of crime. You would ask around, I don't think anyone wants that, for real. This is man's one saving grace, and because Dianetics is such an impulse, and because its basic purposes, from the moment of its conception, have been dedicated unswervably to the attainment of even greater freedom, it cannot perish. A fact which will become doubtlessly more annoying to the slave masters as the years roll in. They will get mad, of course, because there are people who are trying, some people, some small group, who are trying to get people, you know, into a slave. They're trying to control, or they're trying to put you under their control for some reason that you might find out later. There is much argument upon which we would adventure. Sorry, I'm going to repeat that. There is much argument upon which we could adventure concerning whether Dianetics is an art or a science, whether it is a humanity or a hoax. But all this would avail us very little, for we would only be quibbling with words. Dianetics is what it is, and the totality of it can best be summed by the description and understanding of man. We do not care whether or not it is a science. We do care whether or not it is promulgated and known, for everywhere it walks, slavery ceases. That mind which understands itself is the mind of a free man. Does it make sense? If one understands why they react the way they do, when they do it, what makes them react that way, and they get off a little bit of this stimulus response action, I am sure you can understand what I'm talking about. Sometimes we respond or act in a certain way that we actually cannot or don't feel it is under our control. And then we wonder and we go around saying, why did I act that way? Why did I yell to that person that way? Why did I say that? I don't want to do that. whether it's the wife or the boss or a friend or just someone on the street, that when you're driving, some people have reactions. We have reactions. Why do I get depressed? Why am I scared to that, of that or something? So all this is treated with Dianetics, see? Do you see? So it says that mind which understands itself is the mind of a free man. If you can understand where it comes from, how to handle it, how to get rid of it, and if you got rid of it, then you would be free of that stimulus response answer to everything that happens. A person comes and says hello in a bad way and you immediately react and you want to fight, or whatever it is that you have your reactions that you don't understand about yourself. Does it make sense? It is no longer prone to obsessive behavior, unthinking compliances, covert innuendos. It is at home in an environment, not a stranger. It is the solver of problems and the maker of games. A mind that is enslaved is weak. A mind that is free is powerful, and all the power there is defined by and contained in freedom. Why should you know something about your mind? A question of a similar magnitude would be, why should you live? A science fiction writer once conceived a world composed entirely of machines, composed to a point where the machines were repaired by other machines, which in turn were repaired by yet other machines. And so the circle went around and the mechanics survived. The machines survived. He wrote this story from the fondest belief of nuclear physicists that there is only a machine, that man derived from some spontaneous combustion of mud, and the soul does not exist, that freedom is impossible, that all behavior is a stimulus response, that causative thought cannot exist. What a world this would be. And yet this world, this pattern, is the goal of the slave makers. If every man could be depressed from his freedom to a point where he believed himself but a cog in an enormous machine, then all things would be enslaved. But who would there be to enjoy them? Who would there be to profit? Not the slave maker, for he is the first to succumb. He succumbs to his own mechanisms. He receives the full jolt of his own endeavors to entrap. What would be the purpose of this world of machines? There can be no purpose worth contemplating which does not include happiness and experience. When a man is no longer able to envision happiness as a part of his future, that man is dead. He has become nothing but an animated robot, without understanding, without humanity, perfectly willing then to compose missiles of such detonative quality that an entire civilization could perish, and that the happiness of all could be destroyed in the experience of radiation, an experience which might be considered digestible by an atomic pile, but not by a human being. Thus, as we depart from the concepts of freedom, we depart into a darkness where the will, the fear, and the brutality of one or a few, no matter how well educated, may yet obliterate everything for which we have worked, everything for which we have hoped. This is what happens when the machine runs wild, and when man become a machine runs wild. Man can only become a machine when he's no longer capable of understanding his own beingness, his condition of being, who he is, and has lost his contact with it. He doesn't understand who he is. He loses contact. Thus, it is of enormous importance that we understand something about the mind, that we understand we are not machines, and it is of enormous importance that man attain at once to some higher level of freedom where the machine reaction of destruction may be controlled, and where man himself can enjoy some of the happiness to which he is entitled. So this was the sermon of today, of this Sunday. I hope you enjoyed it and you found some truth and some reality in what I'm reading. I'm sorry about my pronunciation sometimes. English is not my first language. Actually, it's Spanish. But I try to give you this as clear as I can so you can understand what L.Ronald Hubbard was saying about Scientology and about life and about the mind in this case. So there have been other videos. If this is the first video that you're watching, I am sure you will see somewhere in the links that there are other videos that you can watch and know a little bit more about Scientology. I'm also going to leave here under here the link to the Scientology network page, where you can actually find out more about Scientology and even visit an organization or a church inside, what it looks like. You can listen to other Scientologists talk about Scientology. And if you're interested just in simply listening to more sermons and knowing what L.Ronald Hubbard has to say about life and what Scientology is, and you want to find out on your own, not what they say on internet and how we brainwash and we do other stuff, that's not true. I can tell you that. You can come and just find out on your own. No one's going to contact you. I have no way to contact you, so I just invite you to come over and find out on your own what it is. And I suppose that if you are here now listening to all this and you made it through the end of the video, then I imagine that you have understood some of the truths that LRH wants to share with you. So I'm going to be here next Sunday for another video and another sermon. So I hope to see you here, and I would love to hear your comments about it. And if you're interested in receiving processing or knowing more about Scientology, then by all means you can write to me directly, and I will sure help you and direct you to the best way in which you can find out more on your own about Scientology. Okay, so see you next Sunday. Until next time, bye.